Recording in progress.
We wake up and discover that we're holding an artist's palette. Maybe doesn't matter who we are, we're who we are. And on our palette we have all these different colors. And we're going to get to paint the day. We'll have a canvas that has some bumps and limitations. Some challenges, some holes probably. But how shall we create today? One way is to begin together as we are so beautifully. And to cultivate mindfulness and concentration and the other enlightenment factors. And it's said that with mindfulness, all the other wholesome states fall in behind. They co-arise. We can't mindfully hate for very long. It's too painful. Just at the moment I said painful, I had a kind of shooting pain inside my head here, like behind my eye. I think it is my eye. Interesting. There it is again. And the mind goes quickly, oh no, is there something really wrong? Oh boy. We live on a very thin edge, don't we? So we do have today. Today is the 12th, October the 12th. I'm sure many important things happened today. I do know it's Melanie Moon's birthday. For those of you that know Melanie. A fine human being if there ever was one. All right. Meditation guidance from Dara Gatling Austin's. I cycle through this one every now and then. It's called I Never Knew. I Never Knew. Take off the backpack. Lie down in long grass, pull up the blue sky blanket and rest. Wait, I have an idea. I just happen to have my tar. Hey, Tim, I don't want this to blow us out. How's that volume? Is that going to be okay, you think? Would you nod?
It's a little on the loud side. You might raise the microphone up or something.
Well, what do you...
It's not terrible. It's a little loud.
It's a little loud.
Compared to your voice.
All right. What if I get close, like you always tell me to? How about that? Is that a better balance now?
Yeah, that's good.
All right. The drum is a wonderful teacher of impermanence, isn't it? I never knew. Take off the backpack. Lie down in long grass. Pull up the blue sky blanket and rest. So many years of Dharma practice, straight spine, diligence, straining toward enlightenment. Today, this hillside, just this, lie down in long grass. Let the earth take you. Deer tracks and horse dung and the eye within the eye, revolving and luminous. I never knew this. Did no one tell me? I do remember my Zen master in the interview room. Trust yourself, he said. Just be yourself. I think his meaning was this. Take off the backpack. Lie down in long grass. Let the sky take you. Rest. Breathe space into space into space. I never knew there was so much light. I aspire to love and accept myself exactly as I am in this moment. The karma of billions of years ripen in this moment as this moment. And this moment is exactly as it is. On the night of his awakening, Siddhartha, later known as the Buddha, remembered as a small boy his father, the head man or king, had been plowing the fields. The ritual plowing, the first furrow with a water buffalo. And the plow was digging up the earth, and there were lots of worms being exposed, and the birds were screaming and following behind and feasting. This troubled Siddhartha. He saw the dukkha of this, the suffering of it. He was supposed to stay, but he didn't. He went and found a place to sit under, they say, under a sala tree. Sala tree is an interesting tree in the Buddhist mythology. He was born under a sala tree. He died under a sala tree. He didn't wake up under a sala tree. He woke up under the Bodhi tree. But the sala tree, I saw one once, produces a dinner plate-sized flower out of the trunk. One night, it just blossoms. So as a boy, he went and sat under the sala tree. And he had a sort of reverie, a certain ease in which there was great comfort. And that night under the Bodhi tree, the night of his awakening, he remembered that. And he was a person who had been striving for almost a decade. Concentration practices, self-mortification practices. So he took this remembrance, this intuition, and sat down under the Bodhi tree. And something happened for him that night of such magnitude that we sit here this morning. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? 2,600 years. And so what if we were to remember some time when we felt really at ease? Maybe a previous meditation. Or what if we just settled back into this moment, into this body, lie down in long grass? We are subject to an epidemic of monstrous proportions beyond COVID, before COVID, which is the epidemic of hurry sickness. There's always a certain tension. There's always somewhere to get to, something to achieve, the to-do list, something to improve. And what if we were to take our seat here, right under the Bodhi tree? What if we were to be comfortably upright? What if we determined, made the intention, I want to be right here. I want this to be my moment of awakening, right now. The Mindfulness Sutta says, we sit down and we abandon covetousness and grief for the world. We let go of the past and future. We acknowledge what exists, which is this sitting, this breathing in, this breathing out. I take refuge in the Buddha, in being awake. I take refuge in the Dharma, in the teachings, and most fundamentally in what is discovered about life and the self, about suffering and relief from suffering, about happiness. And I take refuge in Sangha, in the community of practice. And to clarify our intention, what is it that we intend to do? There's so many things a person can do when they stop like we are. It could be a time for prayer or cognitive behavioral therapy interventions, or it could be a time to figure things out. But that's not the intention of this teaching. This is a teaching about taking refuge in being awake. Each breath has a beginning. Each breath comes into being. The sensations expand. The sensations exist in expansion to fullness and then contraction, to goneness. There may well be thoughts. This voice may periodically punctuate the silence. We can make the thoughts and the mental patterns real in a way by fighting them. Or we can let them be what they are, which is clouds in the mind's sky. And they arise and they disappear. It's a strange thing, isn't it? There's presence, and the breath comes and goes. And then there's a whole variety of trance states. We call them the wandering mind. They can be flavored by wanting, desire, or by disliking, wanting not. They can have the structure and flavor of restlessness and agitation and worry. Or they can be very low energy, and sloth and torpor can emerge. And on occasion there's doubt, skeptical doubt. Why am I doing this anyway? And then mixed in and beneath them, driving them, can be emotions. Fear, desire, or sadness, joy, ebullient joy, loving kindness, compassion. And whatever is happening, we have this very simple practice as we sit here under the Bodhi tree, having made a vow, I'm going to wake up. And then again and again, there's awareness of in-breathing and out-breathing. There's awareness of the mind being filled with thought. And then there's falling into the trance, the delusion. being present for the beginning of things. A sound comes out of the atmosphere. A wandering mind emerges at the mind door. Mindfulness spontaneously springs into being and is noticed for what it is. Mindfulness. Or the mind becomes somewhat concentrated, and it's noted for what it is. It's concentrated. There is a very gentle effort, perhaps, to come home to breathing, to lie down in long grass, to rest. There's no way to storm the gates. Very counterproductive, totally. Instead, we bring love and compassion. When I'm hurting and discover that I'm hurting, I intend to stop. I intend to stop and go deeply into the hurt with great love, just as one would hold a small child that hurt themselves. What's happening? How did you get hurt? It's okay, it'll pass. Just be here with me. And so every breath, every waking up from the dream happens now. And it's so helpful to become aware of mood. Moods sometimes linger with us all day or for many days. In the mental health world, there are mood disorders, anxiety and depression. And to become aware of mood is perhaps to get a glimpse that one is not the mood. It's something that happens. And it happens and is known. And coming home now, please, to the contact of the body with the chair, the floor. Not an idea, not an image, a direct experience coming in home to the experience of hands, the livingness of thumbs and fingers. Notice the aliveness of the face, the lips, the cheeks, the eyes. And now, in the sense door mind, there can be a prompted intention to allow the eyes to open. And so we notice that's the next activity, the next karmic action in a way. And then how is it that that intention is operationalized and then the eyelids open? At first there's blurriness, and then there might be seeing. Seeing to the degree that your eyes and the visual process are all intact. I happen to be wearing glasses, so seeing is clear. Seeing, and we can then see one another. Seeing. And we can see with what I like to call the eyes of blessing, which is, perhaps there's words, perhaps there's just, oh. There you are, me in another form. Us. Had a memory a few minutes ago when I spoke of mood. There were 2 times in my life where I took antidepressants. Very helpful. One was a long time ago. It was the Ronald Reagan election. It was also Lon Mabon, that horrible homophobe in Oregon. My friend Peggy Hackenbrook. We were out on a walk together in the woods, and I was complaining about my depression and anxiety, and she stopped and stepped in front of me and said, Robert, she was a psychiatrist. She said, Robert, what you have we call anxious depression. And I said, yeah, I know. And she said, and I have in my pocket, and she rattled it. She had a starter pack of Prozac. And you need to try this. And I said, but Peggy, I'm not suicidal. At which point she said, Robert, you're a therapist. You can't believe that crap. That's not the only reason you would take antidepressants, which of course I knew for other people, and they helped a lot. And then I did that about a couple of years, 3 years maybe, and then I weaned myself off that, and it was several years later. I was sitting in meditation one morning, very depressed, very heavy, body heavy, head heavy, thinking heavy, just, and I was seeing clients at that point, and I would spend an hour with somebody or 55 minutes or so, and then they would leave my office and I would lie down on my, somehow or another, and just go, And, but I had learned that I could, when I would get up in the morning, I would sit, of course, and if I sat and I took the heaviness, if I took the depression as my meditation object, I got some space from it. I got a little room, and that would last a little while. And one morning I was sitting there, and it wasn't really a voice. Well, maybe it was a voice from inside that said, "Robert, you're depressed." go see somebody and get some help. I was in therapy, but go see someone and you need medication again. And it was partially because the meditation was allowing me to experience the affective state, the mood disorder that I was experiencing, as an object. And I could see what it was that then empowered me to actually do something about it. And then I took Celexa, I think it was, and then Lexapro for almost a dozen years, or 10 years anyway, until something changed, and then I stopped that. And now there isn't much depression. I'm really happy about that. Could be. And I know that if I got really depressed again, I would, of course, explore any causes, but I would also not hesitate very long to get some help chemically. Because we are biochemical organisms. And there is depression, which is biochemical. And there's depression, which is what they call it anaclitic, the depression of babies that are neglected or prisoners in solitary confinement. And there's reactive depression. And there's the depression that naturally comes with grief when all the energy goes inside to do the grieving work. So, all that from a thought. Jim is teaching this Saturday, 9 to 1. You can find the information for that on the website. And Jim and I need to go right at 8 this morning because we have a board meeting. So I will now fall silent and ask, is there anything anyone would like to share, please? Or question.
Robert?
Annie.
This is Annie. Yeah. Hi, Robert. I have a question. I thank you for the meditation this morning. It was beautiful. And the question that has been coming up a lot for me as I've been sitting is around the anatta. And the question that keeps coming up is around, as we're experiencing the breath and the present experiences, is like the question, I guess, is, do we ever wake up from the dream? Because isn't it that the brain is always perceiving the breath, right? That direct experience. And telling us what that experience is. And I'm curious about specific teachings around this that you could point me to, because as I have these very direct experiences and have expansive mind, I still, the question around the absolute and relative experience is very strong. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you have words to share around that. I know it's a big question and you have to go right at 8, but anyways.
Great question. Let me just question one thing. Do you really think that the brain is having experiences? There's a modern notion that we're positing that, well, the brain is the source of consciousness. So the brain is where the person lives. And is that true? Or is that experientially true? And then more practically, perhaps, than that, I think to the question, do we wake up? I think we wake up all the time. A moment of mindfulness is a moment of being awake. And then I know, and I could be completely wrong. But I think that waking up is much more simple than it's certainly much. But my understanding now is much simpler than I ever dreamed it could be, which is you're lost in wandering mind, and then awareness emerges. And in this last hour, that must have occurred here 25 times. Lost in the dream state, and it could be anything. And then, boom, boom, boom. And what we usually do is, let's say you're lost in a dream state of some kind or another, and then awareness reemerges. What we then say is, oh, I just woke myself up, or now I'm awake, or now I'm mindful. And that's another fantasy. Those thoughts are another, it's going back into the dream. Whereas there's also just that being present. And it's not that there's someone present, there's just presence. And there was another piece of what you asked that I wanted to respond to. I've been going through yet another renaissance of realizing what an extraordinary genius Ruth Denison was. And she taught in a very, very simple way, which was be here, be here, be here, be here, be here, be here. And in terms of the anatta teaching, remember, Ajahn Chah said, don't think about anatta. Anatta is the not self-teaching. Don't think about it, it'll blow your head up. That was his view of it. And it's a very, and this is from Ajahn, whatever his name is, Ajahn Jeff. The way to use the anatta teaching is as a strategy, meaning I'm all caught up in anger, let's say, or fear, or jealousy, or loneliness, or whatever it is. And then there's a realization of that. Oh, right. And then the way we pry ourselves loose is is to notice this is a mental state. This is not me or mine. This is an impermanent, impersonal state. And so that way it becomes a very practical, let's say I'm very sad and lonely or something, and in my meditation it becomes clear that, oh, right. Oh, in fact, that experience I had a few weeks ago that was so important, when I was sitting in the backyard and and I was watching the tree, being with the trees, and then my life came along, and the whole poor me story came along. And that's been with me my entire adult existence, at least. And suddenly it became so obvious that the poor me twist to my life story was a pattern. It wasn't personal. It wasn't me or mine. It was an unfortunate misunderstanding of the First Noble Truth. Of course my life has been disappointing because life is disappointing. Duh. And so that's a great example of using the teaching on anatta. In fact, the teaching of anatta did itself, and it became apparent that deeply held personality belief is not personal. It's just a pattern. Is that making sense at all? As a strategy.
Yes, it is. It is as a strategy. Yeah. I think where the struggle was is the sense of, as you are experiencing, or the awareness, the direct experience, isn't there, it feels as though there's like a razor's edge between no self and a brain that's perceiving what's happening, even as you're having that direct experience. And so it's maybe that I just haven't had that experience, so I don't have that direct but I guess that's where I'm at. It's like there's this tiny razor's edge of, is it the brain telling me that I am see, I'm experiencing this sensation of no body, no mind, no, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Once again, you're holding a belief that the brain is in charge somehow. The brain is doing something, and you've created a someone who can be in charge. And is that true, or is that? I think it is. That's a thought. What's the direct experience? And there's some confusion. That would be one direct experience. You can observe that, and here's confusion, and the mind is trying to figure it out. Thank you for sharing, dear mind. Back to the breath, because you'll never figure it out. It's not figure outable.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you.
Robert?
Hi,
it's Karen. And hi,
Karen.
Annie. I know it's almost 8, but I'm reading this great book that you might enjoy. It's called Waking Up by Sam Harris. And he's, I'm right in the chapter. There's a whole chapter on meditation, and it's really it's blowing my mind. It's talking about this little person that we think that there's a person inside that's listening to our thoughts. And he was in the meditation, he's talking about how there's this graduated sort of, like, we sit and we think if we sit long enough and meditate that it's going to get easier. We're going to get to this place of enlightenment. That's one way of thinking. And then the other one is just that we're awake. That we're just to, like what you were saying. I mean, like I said, it's kind of blowing my mind, but it's really, he likens it to a snake that's in a knot, because it's almost that circular thinking, because you kind of go, wait a minute, I'm using my brain to, and it's almost crazy making in a delightful kind of a way. But anyhow, it's Waking Up by Sam Harris. I think you'd enjoy it.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Well, I must go. Let's go out on a gong. I'm going to ring the gong twice, and let us share our merits with each other. May all beings everywhere share in the merits of our practice. May we have a wonderful day of waking up. May we find opportunities to be generous. May we find an opportunity to dance. Happy journeys had. It's the gong that never ends. Good morning, dear friends. Have a beautiful day.